Welcome to Bold Conscious Connections. My name is Raju Panjwani and I'm a certified leadership coach.
And I'm Triccia Ramos, a certified high performance coach. Together, we help business leaders redefine success on their terms to create more space and energy so that they live impactful lives.
Everyone wants to be seen, heard, and understood. So at a deeper level, we know that the collective consciousness is important to raise in this world, and leaders who are influencers can make that difference. We, in our coaching programs, teach people how to focus on the interconnectedness, heart-centeredness, and growth from within. And this is what this podcast will be about.
So stay tuned and subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts.
Talk to you very soon. Welcome to our episode, which we're going to be talking about why Bold Conscious Connections
Is the name of our podcast.
Exactly.
It's funny, we get all the way to this episode before we actually break that down for you. Why is being bold and conscious part of our program? You know, we have a program, we offer Bold Conscious Leadership. We also have one called Bold Conscious Business Mastery. So I think it's about time we finally broke down what bold conscious means.
And why we began with that. So back when we started this company, livemasterminds.com, it was about being live before this whole pandemic hit, being physical with people, and really do a workshop together that allowed people to really interact. And we would spend anywhere between 1 and 3 days with them. And what were we talking about? We were talking about, these business leaders being, having more courage to come out and really express themselves in the best way of themselves, the highest selves that they could be in the world, because we believed that everyone has a unique expression. And while we don't talk about there being no competition, it just means that you are unique in your own way. And what better way than to have a way to express your business, a way to express yourself in the form of a business.
Yes, and we certainly know a lot of leaders out there, a lot of business owners out there who do have businesses, but aren't necessarily bold in the way they approach their business, or perhaps they were bold at one point and somewhere along the line they lost that boldness. Or maybe they're out there and they have a viable business that they inherited from their parents, or, it was a family business, and they're not too conscious and aware of what the implications are of their business and how they could further move it into the future, while not just surviving, right, but thriving with that. So this idea of being a bold and conscious leader really was inspired by how can we help entrepreneurs, business owners, startups create businesses that are conscious, that are truly contributing a higher purpose to not just their own families and communities, but to the world at large. And how can we help leaders feel more bold in their approach?
So as you know, someone recently asked, are you focused on leaders who are already conscious and therefore need to be more bold? Or they're already very courageous, obviously they have a business, so we honor businesses or business people who step out into the world, whether they worked in corporate before or whatever inspired them to go and express themselves in the form of a business. So are you focused on those guys who need to be more conscious? Well, I think it's both, right? We look for people to be more courageous. If they're already more awakened and conscious, then you can be more bold and actually raise your ambition and other elements of being bold to be out there fully. And as you say, you're not benefiting just your family and your team, but you're really inclusive. You're inclusive in your own thinking, right? That's the idea of being more conscious and being more awake.
And we also want to shift the paradigm around what this means. Traditionally people think of bold as being associated with youth, with the young, and it's easy to be bold when you're young and the world hasn't beat you up yet. right? So I have memories of being younger and definitely making bold moves. And somehow over time, as we get older, something about maturity sometimes makes you feel like you can't be as bold anymore. So we really want to remind you that being bold is not limited to your younger years.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, we also know that raising your consciousness isn't something you should wait until you're in your fourth, fifth, sixth decade to try to do. That you can be in your, you could be much younger than that. We have clients in their 20s that have such a heightened level of awareness. It's so impressive how
Exactly.
conscious they are, not just of themselves, but the world and what it is that they're here to do. And so we really want to share with everybody that this idea of you being a leader, being an influence to someone, being a role model, even if it's your children only, and wow, what an amazing feat that is, that being bold and conscious is something that everybody should, strive for, that we all have the ability to be more of this. And so I think it's important to be able to define, first of all, what makes somebody more bold. And let's start there. Why is being bold important today? If you have a platform, a voice, a business, why do you want to be bold today? Why is that important?
Well, first of all, that comes from the belief that you can do anything you put your mind to and your focus, on. So where energy goes, or where your focus goes, energy flows, right? So the fundamental point is that if it's a business pursuit you're in, do you believe that it's a spiritual process for you to express yourself? Because you're here to serve. If you're a leader who has a product or service, you want to get to the highest level possible, not just by acquiring companies or just growing, inorganically, which is what a lot of firms do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it comes from the ethos of what created the edifice of that company, right? Because somewhere along the way, the founder had this dream that he or she was there to serve the world, right? So bold, again, you talk about age. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm in the other category. I wasn't bold most of my life, even when I was young. But it's about being unbridled and unencumbered in your thinking, in your ability to raise your ambition, right? So we define bold as in 5 elements, right? We say ambition.
Well, let's break it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ambition is a natural one, because we all that perhaps grew up in corporate life or otherwise, you have an ambition to go, do something, particularly when you're younger. The second is,
well, it's conviction. So it's really about your belief in what you hold to be true for you, even if the rest of the world isn't moving in that same direction. Somebody with conviction is able to stand firm in their belief. So, an example that we've used over and over in the past is when leaders, influential leaders, make a stand for an idea that everybody around them seems to not understand. They don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah. Because they see something that no one else sees.
Yeah,
right?
like for example, I'll use Elon Musk. His conviction that he can get people to Mars, and that's really the place where, that's the next place. He's got very strong conviction in that, and in the meantime, he's building all these other things. But that dream of eventually putting human life on Mars, that's something he truly, truly believes in. Or even Steve Jobs with the idea that, the computer can be held in your pocket in your phone and you never need anything beyond that. Right. And not only would it be functional, but it would be the most beautiful thing that you would own. So beauty and function together. He really believed that you can create a product like that. And so, majority of us are walking around with these iPhones when 20 years ago, that didn't even exist.
Right. And it began with changing a Walkman into a iPod, which basically, held all your music. in one little instrument, a little device, which has just gotten smaller and smaller.
So those are just examples
Yes.
of conviction, how somebody has an idea in their minds, and even though they can't see the path between where we are today and the manifestation, the full manifestation of the idea, they go for it anyway. That's somebody with conviction.
Yeah.
But the idea is born in your ambition, right? Like we have to want something beyond what we see today, and that's the ambition.
And that comes from in your heart, and your somewhere deep down, that it's hard to describe, that there's also a belief that ideas come from the outside. Well, they all come from within, in your own desire to express that into the world. Number 3 is being decisive. A lot of business people I know are into analysis paralysis, right? They need to have all the information possible they can get before they would make a decision.
Well, that actually sounds like the world. You don't have to be in business. I think every person can.
But I'm saying in the idea that if you're in business, you're more likely to be, fraught with decision making every day, and you don't have all the information, and you can actually hurt your business by not making a decision. And again, there's a balance between just on the fly reacting to what you need to do versus really being strategic. But the thing is, again, going back to examples of corporates, what is it well known about Jeff Bezos is that guy doesn't need more than, maybe a third or some average of 30-40% of information before he would go ahead, because it's probably backed by his ambition and the conviction that he already had to be also then decisive. Because if you're not decisive, either you're potentially losing an opportunity or really, spinning wheels where you could be actually making the difference to somebody out there.
And that's really what being a bold leader is about. It's actually having the gall to be able to make decisions and know that you don't have all of the answers and you don't have all the information, but you actually believe that you'll figure it out anyway along the way. And so this is where I've heard people say, like, just throw spaghetti on the wall, see what sticks, because it's really about getting into action. So you don't want to take a lot of action that is going to amount up to nothing. That's not what we're saying. But it starts with at least being able to take action, right? And no, you aren't stuck in that analysis paralysis where you have to wait until all conditions are right for you to make moves, because how do you know what those conditions should be? And with the world shifting so much, so quickly, so fast nowadays, especially with like a global pandemic, we just don't know what the proper conditions are anymore. And is that going to be something that stops you from moving forward? Or are you going to be decisive enough and, at some point own up to the idea that, what, you can figure it out. And if you don't figure it out, you know that you can surround yourself with others who will help you figure it out,
Exactly.
And that's really the idea of being a bold leader, is that, sometimes the world around you isn't presenting you with the best environment to move forward with that idea, but you don't let that stop you.
I mean, what do we say in all our programs? It's about the focusing on the why you want to do something and what is it you want to do. Once you've got that, whether it's through the ambition and the conviction of your idea, you then have to move forward, because if you don't get started, nothing's going to happen, and you won't get the feedback, because if you're not in the market, you're not providing the service, you don't know what's working and what isn't working. So that's an important step, is to really be decisive and move forward without having all the information.
And we know a lot of people who are, because of the environment right now with COVID and all of that, people are sort of at this like crux of choosing between different paths they can take with their future. When you have a lot of uncertainty, you should really find a way to be grateful that you're being presented options. And I think as human beings, we tend to view that time, that decision making time, as something to be scared of, something to be fearful of, and something to feel bad about. It's almost like, as much as we want to be free, there's a part of us that actually doesn't want to make that choice either. There's a part of us that would rather be told what we should do. There's a part of us that would rather have someone make the decision for us.
Sometimes even circumstances, right? Well, it'll all happen, and then the circumstance makes the decision for you, because now you're left no choice but to move forward, right? Because that happens,
right,
in many cases in life.
Well, and then if that happens a lot, if that happens to you quite a bit, then you have to ask yourself why you are constantly putting yourself in a state where circumstances have to decide for
Exactly.
you. Because the truth is, we all have been gifted the ability to choose, to discern. We are free to really live this time that we have on this planet any which way we choose.
Yeah.
And so it really is something where, and I've experienced this myself, where I've gone through moments in my life where I've been so tired and perhaps maybe emotionally drained, where I did just want someone to tell me what to do. And what we're saying is, we really encourage everybody to tap into their hearts, tap into that boldness within them, to choose because you can, because you're able, because you lack nothing, to be able to really choose what it is that you want. Yes, we know that this is the information coming in from out there. Yes, we know that these are the standards. But, people that we just mentioned before, these people weren't functioning within the standards. They were really interested in how to add something, to contribute something, to create something that would really make a difference. And if you're listening to this, it's probably because you are a business owner or a leader, or maybe you want to leave your job and you want to start your own business, and you want that business to be an expression, an authentic expression of who you are. And what we're saying to you is, go for it, right? Be decisive. Just,
I always say, if not now, when? So, life's too short, man. If you know us, any part of our stories, we're believing, we know that we're mortal, and we don't want to live in this, notion that we will live forever, and we'll do this tomorrow or the day after. So, why don't we go to number 4?
Sure, that is heart-centeredness. So we've been talking about courage, and really bold is something that you do associate with the heart. So a leader who is heart-centered is able to really tap into the part of them that connects them to everyone and everything else. So it's the idea that you understand unity consciousness, and for us that means you understand who you are as part of the wholeness of everything around you, and that you understand that part of creating that is creating that within yourself. So this heart-centeredness is being true to who you are, and making decisions and making moves and making a stand for what you believe is right, regardless of whether or not it's widely accepted out there. So someone who's heart-centered isn't afraid to advocate for what they believe is right, because perhaps the standards that we've set as a society haven't caught up to that yet, right? So this idea of being heart-centered is really knowing what's right and wrong, and moving in alignment with what's congruent for them.
So it's really, if it's the heart we're talking about, really it's about you're tapping into your intuition, because you feel the need for whatever you are expressing into the world, and the world would benefit from it. So you're always thinking about that, and that is the inclusiveness. Because if you're doing everything with full heart in every moment, you're likely a person that is inclusive of humanity as a whole, because you're trying to provide the value of either a service or a product to your clients and to your constituencies.
And that is what bold conscious businesses are about.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not just a program for business owners so that they can create businesses. It's a program for leaders to be able to create conscious businesses. And so this idea of being heart-centered is central to that, because we know what it's like. We've lived it. We've lived situations that were created because we were leading too much with our head and not enough with our hearts. And the truth is, a lot of things that change and make things better are not logical.
Yeah.
They're not anything that you can rationalize. Have you ever moved with something because you just know that felt right, even if logically it made no sense? Well, that's what heart-centeredness is.
Exactly. It's so you speak to the essence, right? It's always the essence. I mean, how many more cups of, what coffee cups look like, or mugs look like, or glasses look like? Why do people keep creating more and more of these? Well, apart from the fact that they break. But it really is the expression of the idea, the thought that someone decided to create because they felt good about creating it, right? So the potter created a design, and they decided to put it out in the world. That's coming from the heart. So whatever product you use around you, just think about what it probably took for someone to create, for someone to express themselves in the world in the form of that little thing you use.
Yeah, I love that visual and that example because, maybe your business is about products. Maybe your business is about services. Whatever it is, the idea is that what is yours to contribute to the world is a unique expression of who you are.
Exactly.
And if you can tap into what that value is that's being added to other people around you from the product or the service you offer, if you can really focus on what's the value that you're adding by creating that product or by offering that service, chances are, if you can get that right, your business will thrive. If you're really thinking about the other person, the user, if you're thinking about their experience, that's you being heart-centered. And businesses that make that be the priority don't really have to worry about customers coming to them, right?
And they will find a way to innovate. They will find a way to, find the market and keep expanding in that market because they know there's a whole world out there. And that brings us to number 5.
And number 5, humility. We did do an episode on
that,
humility, so you should definitely tune in on that. But humility.
So what does that mean? It just simply means that you know that you can't go it alone. And if you're inclusive, using the previous examples of being heart-centered, chances are, you have a team of people that you rely on, that you depend on, and you know that everyone's interconnected in some way, that when we connect with each other, we grow together, which is part of the reason why our podcast is entitled Bold Conscious Connections, because connections with others and creating this, knowing that we're all interconnected, is what speaks to the unity consciousness, and which is really why we do this, why we call this podcast Bold Conscious Connections, because it's really about the connections at a deeper level with others that allow you to grow and be more bold, because you can't get it done all. There's always support for you, and even if it doesn't look obvious in the form that you think it is, it's there for you if your heart's in the right place.
And you said it. You said bold conscious connections is about connecting at a deeper level. Because that's really where we're at. We are really no longer satisfied with shallow. As after having experienced 2020, don't you agree that if you're going to make time to spend it with someone, you're going to do it with depth? There's really no more time, room, energy for shallow. I mean, think about it. We have social distancing. So if you're going to break that, you're not just going to break it with anybody. If you are spending a lot of time on Zoom, you're not going to Zoom with anybody. And if you do, you're not going to do it just to be casual about it. And if you are doing that, I'm going to guess you're drained. Because there is something about staying surface, shallow, believe it or not, is draining. Because you're putting something out there, but you're not really being authentically you and letting yourself express the depth of who you are. And therefore, you're not also seeing the benefit of seeing the other person at the depth of who they are. And there's something draining about that.
Yep. So whether it's distractions, fear of judgment, and whatever else holds you back from whatever it is you want to connect to somebody with deep depth, you got to examine where your energy is going, right? Really where your focus is. And we're not talking about being, time, productivity and all that. It's really about where your heart lies and where you are really showing up authentically. And you used the word congruent earlier, as yourself, as your highest self. It is true. It's really hard to talk to people at getting together and having a drink and all of that stuff, because, if you're spending time with somebody, it better be uplifting for both parties.
Otherwise, why bother? And so that's why humility is so important here, because, this idea of humility is that you're allowing yourself to be seen, all of you, the parts of you that you're proud of and the parts of you that perhaps maybe you'd rather not let others see. And by you allowing yourself to be seen in that light, you also give somebody else permission to become themselves, to really allow themselves to be themselves and not have to put up this front, right? Because humble leaders recognize what it is that they are bringing to the table, but they're also well aware of what talents they need to seek outside of themselves so that their organization, their company, can really thrive. And when you can recognize that you don't have all the answers, nor do you need to have all the answers, and you create and facilitate an environment where other people can contribute and other people can feel equally seen, heard, and understood. I mean, there's nothing more motivating than being part of an organization like that, where you feel like your talents are being appreciated and encouraged, and that what you're doing is making a difference to not just yourself, but to everybody involved.
And it's okay to make mistakes in the business context. But all that we just said also applies to your relationships, right? Your family, if you're a unit with one mission, togetherness, how is that affecting you? And what is it that, are you allowing people to be vulnerable with each other? And it's okay, because we cannot feel high-level emotions, all day long. That's just not being human. But the ability to be heard or be understood is an important part of all of that. So whether it's in your company or your life, across the board, I think all of these concepts of being bold applies.
And why be bold today? Well, here's why. The world doesn't have a shortage of bad leaders out there. There are no shortages of businesses you walk into and you wonder why they're still in business. Like, we've all experienced, what it's like to be disappointed, or we have expectations, and we feel like that leader, that business, that organization failed us. Well, guess what? At least they're in the game. You're listening to this. Are you in the game? And are you being mindful about your own ability to be bold? Because if you're not satisfied with the status quo, then get out there and challenge it. And if you're not satisfied with today's standards, then you go make sure that your business is raising those standards for your industry. We see it all the time, examples of businesses that go above and beyond, and really they thrive because they offer something that their competitors are not doing. They're being bold, right?
Yeah.
And so, how can you take some of these concepts and apply it to you? Since, guess what? No one's going to lead your life for you. You're the leader within your own life. You are the one creating your own experiences. And so how can you, in your moment to moment, day to day, show up to be more bold so that you can impact not just your own experience, but the experience of your family, your children, your clients. And really, that's how change occurs. Change doesn't happen because we elected a new president. Change happens because we decided to change something within ourselves.
So, again, tying it back to consciousness and bold, hey, you could choose, are you bold? Or maybe you're bold in some parts of your life, given these little 5 elements we talked about. Or perhaps you need to be more bold in one area or 2 areas, which you may want to think about or explore. Consciousness is the other part of it, but we've explained being conscious in the context of being bold. Maybe we'll pick up more into consciousness on another topic.
We'll do that another time because that
Exactly.
also has its own. There's so much we could talk about within that too. So perhaps today really is just about the elements of boldness and why leaders today really need to take a look at where they can be more bold in these areas: ambition, conviction, decisiveness, heart-centeredness, and humility. And perhaps if you were to assess your own ambition, conviction, decisiveness, heart-centeredness, humility, you can figure out where you could step it up.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to just be a quiet leader anymore. Would you agree to that?
Yes, quiet comes in different forms. You can be very quiet in silence and actually use that to really add incredible value to your product or service. But expression through your service, through your voice, through your product, all of this can be many forms that it takes. But
I'm going to challenge the quiet leader sort
yeah,
because the world is bombarding everybody with so much information that if you aren't readily using your own voice and expressing your thoughts, you might have great ideas, but because you're not expressing them, how are the people around you going to hear them?
well, your voice can carry different forms. It can be writing,
Sure.
could be written word, could be.
I don't just mean vocal.
Yeah. So again, to be clear, voices can be heard in any just different way. You can't be silent. That's the point, and I think that's absolutely correct. Whether you express it in the form of a film or writing or actually speaking, all of those are expressions. But you cannot be quiet. That's for sure. Because if it's certain changes you want to see, you owe it to yourself to be out there.
So as a leader, is it okay to say things like, oh, I just have this little company. Nobody cares what I have to say. Nobody needs to hear what I have to say. What I have to say is not important. Is that okay anymore?
What do you think?
I know my answer.
Yeah, of course not. That's crazy. Now, we all have statistics to talk about. Well, 80% of the businesses fail within a year. My God, if you didn't start something with that ambition to create something, so what if it failed, right? Because you are out there pursuing your expression and your best ability to do it. The fact that you are even talking about something to get out there as a business, I think it's honorable. So yeah, and if you're not going to take this opportunity today in 2021, right at the end of 2020, man, life is too short not to give it a try. So be bold.
Yeah. I think that we owe it not just to ourselves, but to the future, to ensure that we are contributing to the conversation. And this is why we work with our clients, that their boldness, their expression, whether it's written, whether it's in the form of their business, whether it's how they're showing up and speaking, but that they're making their presence felt. They're making their presence known. And you never know who's listening, who's watching, that you can inspire. The idea here is to remind everybody that deep within each of us is the power to make a difference. And when someone chooses not to use their voice because they think what they have to say is not important enough, by you minimizing your ability to contribute, on the one hand, we could argue that you're also then not giving everybody the permission to express themselves in their authentic ways. Because the truth is, what we allow ourselves to do or to be is what we allow others. And so if we don't step into and claim, ownership of our voice and, stand up for what we believe in, what's going to happen to the future?
Yep. Whether you're a mother or father or husband or wife, in any role of a leadership, you're being watched. So if you don't allow your children to express, for instance, then
if you don't do it,
you don't do it.
What's the role model?
Exactly.
Right?
So if you're not the role model that you want to be, then we're hurting our future generation.
Yeah, and I just think that there's so many. All of us in us are ideas. We've all come in with infinite potential, and the younger generation, they're much more free actually in expressing that. And I know I've learned a lot from our younger clients. And so if you're listening to this, we're saying give yourself the permission. Don't wait for somebody else to validate your ideas or validate you. Do the work within you. Do the work. Start to do the work to really step into the ownership and the responsibility of why you're here in the first place, and really begin to own that so that everybody around you can feel and also follow your lead.
Terrific. Well, we have yet another subject you just brought up, infinite potential. So maybe that's another topic for another time. Well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yes, go be bold. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if so, make sure to subscribe, download, and share it with your sphere of influence.
We bring a variety of topics to you, and it's like a masterclass for those topics, and it's all free.
So take a screenshot, share it on your social media, and add the hashtag #BoldConsciousConnections so that we can find you, see you, maybe say hello.
And if you want to deep dive into some of the topics that we bring to you, find us at www.livemasterminds.com and get to know us.